Hello all, good evening and welcome to yet another live session of Narayana IAS Academy. So as all of you know, this is Surekha Bhaskar here to present you or take you through the daily news analysis. So as usual, for today's discussion, we've picked up a number of articles from both the Indian Express as well as the Hindu that become extremely important and relevant for the UPSC CSE examination. So here, as a daily routine, as all of you know, let us actually start with a motivation. So what's the motivation for today is that if you don't risk anything, you risk even more, right? So it actually looks like a very short quotation or a motivation quote, but this actually has a deep rooted meaning. This actually says that if you are not ready to step out of your comfort zone, what happens? We will actually miss out on the growth, some of the meaningful experiences, etc. So that would actually result in stagnation. Okay, so that will actually hamper our morale, and that will actually hamper our growth potential. So that is what it is. However difficult it may seem, we need to step out of our comfort zone by taking risk so that we don't put ourselves at more risk in the future. So similar is the UPSC preparation. Okay, being scared of it is not going to help us, all right? So just venture into it, see if you can do it or not, and in the next attempt or something you can actually see what better you can actually do for yourself, because education will definitely take you forward to some height or the other. Now, so in order to ease your preparation for the UPSC CSE examination, we as R&D team have actually come up with this 110-day self-study planner for the upcoming prelims examination 2025. Okay, so this actually consists of the topics thematically that has actually been designed based on the weightage of questions that have appeared in the prelims, or the previous year questions in the prelims examination predominantly. So we have actually classified those topics for a particular day, and correspondingly we've actually told what sources to refer, and beyond that we've actually given you the critically important current affairs from such themes which you need to cover for the examination. And also we are actually coming up with the release of the yearly compilations, which actually has the articles that are actually compiled and curated together for you guys by our R&D team, which actually has, as I told you, the yearly compilation of the topic subject wise. So totally there will be 7 books, and also the missed out topics, of which if you feel any upcoming news would be missed out in that particular edition, do not worry, we will actually cover them up in the upcoming monthly magazine compilations that we actually release by 5th of every month. So here, please do follow this 110 days plan so that you're not lost haywire in the ocean of the syllabus that the exam actually offers. Now, moving forward, we also have our products, that is 1 year prelims cum mains integrated course 2026, and we have a 2-year prelims cum mains integrated course for the 2027 examination, which actually is nothing but 1,000+ hours of course, where 800+ hours is actually dedicated exclusively for your general studies as well as your CSAT, and 200+ hours is actually dedicated for your current affairs. Also, we have a subject matter experts, and the teachers who are actually teaching you this course will be the experts from different domains who have even appeared in the interview stage of the examination. Also, we actually give you a strategic micro schedule, that is nothing but like the 110 days plan. We also come up with a micro schedule which actually consists of a day-to-day planner, that how you need to follow and how you need to take up the test, when, at what duration, when is your revision, etc. will actually be mentioned in this particular planner. Moving forward, as I told you, we have our expert faculty who will be handling with these particular subjects for you, and also in order to give regular feedback and in order to give you an idea of how you are faring well in your performance, we also have the test series as well as curated or personalized feedback, okay, that you will receive from our end, so that you can introspect and look into your performance. Now, let us quickly get into today's discussion. Let us see what are the topics that we have actually picked up for today's discussion. The first article has been picked up from page number 17 of the Indian Express. Okay, so what does this article say? So here it is, why global sea ice cover has dipped to a record low, and what does this actually mean? So in the Indian Express there's an article which actually states that the global sea ice cover has actually declined to all-time low. So here you need to understand the broader perspective of this topic. Okay, so sea ice cover is just one portion. You also have the glacier, the permafrost, the ice sheets, etc. So all these surface of the earth where the water is actually frozen is called as cryosphere. And here, what is the implication of climate change on cryosphere becomes an important topic for the examination. So here we will actually be covering what is the concept of cryosphere and what are the impacts of climate change on cryosphere. Okay, so this is actually a mains article that we will be discussing today. Now moving forward, the second article again has been taken from page number 17 of the Indian Express, Alzheimer's incidence linked to blood fat levels. So recent studies that have actually been conducted, this is saying that there are recent incidences of Alzheimer's disease. Okay, that is a neurological or a neurodegenerative disorder. So that is actually linked to the blood fat levels. That is, when the fat level which is actually present in your blood increases, that increases your proximity or your chances of having this particular condition of Alzheimer's. So as you know, these kind of disorders, neurological disorders or any kind of diseases, what are the causative agents? The vectors, whether it is caused by virus, bacteria or any kind of parasites, whether it is caused by mosquitoes, whether it's transmitted from human to human, whether it's a zoonotic disease, all those concepts become important for your general science, particularly for your prelims examination. And in those cases, whether if there is a vaccine that is actually discovered and what has been the WHO measure for that, all that becomes extremely important. So here we will be discussing about this condition of Alzheimer, and this forms a part of your prelims discussion. Now moving forward, the third article has been picked up from the text and context page, that is on building resilient telecom infrastructure. So recently we actually have a report that has been released by the Coalition on Disaster Risk Infrastructure report. Okay, so the CDRI has actually come out with the report on assessing what is the situation of the telecom sector and how it is actually vulnerable to disasters. Also, this particular report gives about what are the vulnerabilities and also the recommendations to overcome such vulnerabilities. And also CDRI as an institution becomes very, very important for the prelims perspective. So again, here this becomes important prelims discussion. And finally, the last article for the day has been picked up from page number 7 of the Hindu. Supreme Court asks the panel to look into Tamil Nadu's plains over Mullaperiyar Dam. So here we will be discussing about the National Dam Safety Authority, because the dam safety has been a very, very important topic that has actually been off late. And also linked to this, your homework would be, you will be reading more about what is the problem when there is a river water dispute between the two states, whether the center can interfere, and constitutionally what are actually the provisions, whether a tribunal actually has to be contributed, whether the award is binding on the two states or not, and what are the different states having different differences with respect to that of interstate river water sharing. All that we'll actually discuss. So with respect to this particular article, we'll be looking into the Mullaperiyar Dam and also National Dam Safety Authority. Okay, so this is what you need to know. We'll be discussing about Periyar River and all those things. Now, having given you enough introduction about what we're going to discuss, let's quickly jump into why global sea ice cover has dipped to record low and what this actually means. Okay, so here we will be discussing about a broader concept. Here what happens is that this article just talks about only one particular part of this particular cryosphere. It talks only about the global sea ice. However, we are going to cover the larger perspective of the entire cryosphere itself. Let us move forward. So cryosphere is what we will be discussing, and also this is an important topic of climate change. And moving forward, climate change becomes important for your prelims, and for the mains examination it is under environmental pollution and degradation. Now moving forward, let us actually see there has been a direct question in the year 2017 mains examination. How does the cryosphere affect global climate? So from here you actually understand how this topic becomes important for your examination. Now let's move forward and see. So recently there has actually been a study that was conducted by the US National Snow and Ice Data Center. So this is not that important, just the findings of the study is important, and if you want to quote that in your mains examination, again this data points are important, okay. So the US National Snow and Ice Data Center, NSIDC, actually has told that the global cryosphere is rapidly declining, specifically with respect to the global sea ice cover, which has actually reached record low levels due to the effects of global warming. So this is what it is. You know global warming, right? What do you mean by global warming? When there is a lot of emission, or the pollution into the atmosphere, there is actually a release of the greenhouse gases like methane, carbon dioxide, etc. These ultimately increase the temperature, and then what happens? That actually results in global warming, which results in the melting of ice and snow. When there is melting of ice and snow, what happens? The albedo effect. What do you mean by albedo? If this is the surface of snow, what happens? The amount of rays that actually comes from the sun is incident on this particular ice sheets, and it is reflected back into the atmosphere. Okay, so that reflection is called as albedo. So when this ice actually melts, what happens? The water and the open land is actually open for more absorption of heat. Then what happens? This actually results to more heating. Okay, so when there is less albedo, there is increased heating of land and water, and when there is increased heating of land and water, that actually results in further depletion or melting of glaciers. That is going to further result in increase in the sea levels, etc. Okay, so this is the impact of climate change. So this is the overall feedback loop that this article is going to discuss. Okay, so now you need to know that this particular study has found out that global sea ice cover has actually reached a record low. Now let's move forward and understand. Yeah, let's move forward and understand what does this particular study has found out. First, it said since 1970s, late 1970s, around 77,800 square kilometers of sea ice had actually been lost. So done. Next one, if you see the trends in the Arctic and the trends in the Antarctic. So in the Arctic, that is between 1981 to 2010, the Arctic sea ice extent has shrunk at the rate of 12.2%. Okay, so when you're quoting in the exam, you can say as per the recent study, the sea ice in the Arctic region has actually shrunk at a rate of around 12.2%. And if you see in the Antarctic trends also, the sea ice cover has actually been lower. That is around 2 million square kilometer lower than usual. This is nothing but this 2 million square kilometer is almost 10 times the size of UK. So it has actually shrunk to such a great extent is what this study is telling. And also there has been sea ice dip. There are various reasons for the dip. Okay, why? There is actually global warming. I told you, because the air and the seas are actually getting warmer. Next one, there is delayed freezing. I told you, because there is more exposure of land and the sea, then what happens? There is more absorption of heat. That is why there is delayed freezing. So this one. Then ice breaking winds. Then you have storm activities, and then a feedback loop that I actually told you. This is nothing but this is the reduced ice. This actually increases the heat absorption, thereby resulting in regional warming. Okay, so this is what the study has actually found out. Now moving forward, we will actually see the observations. If you see the extent of the sea ice in the Arctic region around 1981 to 2010, you can actually see this red line, right? So this has been the rate. Specifically in the month of March, it has been around 14 million square kilometers. Okay, whereas if you see in the 2011-12, this was actually the mark, and recently if you see 2024-25, this has actually been the record low, which is only around 12 million square kilometer. Okay, now moving forward, if you see the Antarctic extent, here also you can see towards March, it has already been around, if you see here, it was around 4 to 6 millions of square kilometer. And if you see currently, that is in 2024, this is actually indicated in this blue. It has actually further decreased. Okay, so this is actually the dipping in the level of ice in the Arctic and the Antarctic region. Now moving forward, let us understand the bigger perspective. What do you mean by cryosphere? I told you these are the surfaces of the earth where water exists in the frozen form. The frozen form can actually be what you say, it can either be on the continents, such as it can be your ice sheets, your ice caps, the glacier, etc. Or it can be on water also, like your frozen lakes, your frozen river, and then frozen parts of some other oceans, etc. Okay, so the portions of the earth's surface where water exists in the frozen form is called as, including ice and snow, is called as cryosphere. This actually originated from the Greek term that means cryos. This means cold or frost. Here, Earth's cryosphere includes two. I told you ice and snow on land and ice in water. On land, it actually includes the continental ice sheets, ice caps, glaciers, and permafrost. Whereas ice and water includes the frozen part of the ocean, frozen rivers, sea ice shelves, and icebergs. Okay, so you know icebergs, right? Only 1% is actually on top, and the remaining of it is under the ocean. So this is what is called as cryosphere. Now let us quickly see. This is a pictorial representation. If you see, this is the ice sheet. Okay, so this forms a part of cryosphere. Here you actually have the snow, you have ice shelf, iceberg, ice sea, and this is what we are talking about right now. Then lake and river ice, and this is a permafrost. Permafrost is what? The layer which is actually beneath the topmost layer of the soil and which actually stays frozen for more than 2 years. And this is also a layer where there is maximum accumulation of the greenhouse gases, okay, like methane, etc. So this is the permafrost. And then you have again the snow, glacier, as well as the ice cap. So now we've actually seen what the study was about, and then we actually saw what is the cryosphere. Now quickly let us understand what is the significance of cryosphere, and following that we will actually understand what is the impact of climate change on the cryosphere. So significance of cryosphere is that first one is climate regulation. Okay, so the primary role of the cryosphere in the global climate system is actually called as the albedo. What is the albedo? I told you this is the surface of the ice or the snow. The sun's radiation is incident on the snow and it gets reflected back into the earth's atmosphere. That process of getting reflected is called as albedo. Okay, so this is solar rays are reflected to space from the shiny surface of the cryosphere. In case if the reflection is high, what happens? Then there is lesser absorption of heat, and this actually maintains a cooler global temperature. Now moving forward, what is the second significance? It is a major source of fresh water because these frozen surfaces almost contain 70% of the world's fresh water, primarily which are actually stored in these glaciers, the ice caps, the ice sheets, etc. And this helps in maintaining the availability of water resources across the globe, and also can be used for other important purposes like agriculture, then drinking purposes and other human activities or industrial purposes, etc. Next significance is that it actually helps in the storage of carbon. I told you, right, the permafrost, specifically that which is located in the Arctic region, it stores twice the carbon that the atmosphere can actually hold, okay, today. That is around 1400 to 1600 billion tons of carbon. So permafrost, I told you, the land that actually remains frozen for more than a couple of years. Okay, so these are some of the significances like regulation through albedo, regulation of climate. Next one is source of fresh water because it holds around 70%. Next one is carbon storage, that is it can hold up to twice the total amount of carbon that the atmosphere can hold in the permafrost region, etc. Now moving forward, next one, it consists of a variety of ecosystems. Okay, that is it has diverse ecosystems, specifically if you see in the polar regions. Okay, so almost 14,000 terrestrial species are there. That actually includes both the flora, that is the vegetation, and the fauna, that is the animal species. Also, cryosphere becomes an important part of any country, that is globally, in order to achieve the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. You can ask me how, because SDG 13 actually deals with climate action. So when you deal with climate action, this also, that is this global warming and the melting of the ice, again becomes very important, right? So it is intertwined, or it is deeply interlinked with SDG 13, because it plays an active role as a critical indicator and driver of climate change. Next one, its impact on the freshwater resources, that is SDG 6. SDG 6 actually talks about what? It is clean water and sanitation. Okay, so SDG goals you need to memorize. We have actually discussed about that in one of our classes, right? Next one, biodiversity, that is SDG 15. This actually talks about life on land. Do you understand? So all these are the significance of cryosphere. Having understood this, let us actually see what is the albedo, that is percentage of reflection from the earth's surface. If you see the percentage of reflection, it is somewhere between 0 to 10 on water. If you see the forest, it is between around 10 to 20. And if you see the earth's average, somewhere actually lies over here between 20 to 40. Whereas the number or the percentage actually increases with respect to the snow or the ice, which is old snow or ice. If you see fresh snow, it is around 90% of albedo. Do you understand? That is 90% is actually reflected back into the atmosphere. Next one, let us see what are the impacts of climate change on this cryosphere. Okay, do you understand? Now let us actually see. The first one is cryosphere loss due to global warming. So what do you mean by cryosphere loss due to global warming? That is what I told you, right? When the temperature rises, there is widespread shrinking of the ice cap or the ice snow. So as per the WMO, that is the World Meteorological Organization's State of Global Climate Report, it actually said that the cumulative thickness of the glaciers, which are worldwide, have actually declined by around 30 meters since 1970. Moving forward, there is also sea level rise, as I told you, because more the glacier or more the ice sheets or the ice caps actually melt, there is going to be increase the sea level rise. This is going to majorly threaten the coastal areas. Also, you have the State of the Cryosphere 2024 report. Here, the rate of the global sea level rise has actually doubled in the last 30 years. Next, this is also expected to increase to around 6.5 millimeter per year by the year 2050. Okay. Now, let us move forward to see what are the other impacts. Next one is thawing of the permafrost. What do you mean by thawing? It's going to melt. Okay. So, freezing and thawing. When there is a season of thawing, what happens is that the permafrost region which actually release a lot of GHGs, that is the greenhouse gases like the methane, carbon dioxide, etc. And this Arctic permafrost alone contains nearly twice the amount of carbon currently in the atmosphere we saw. That is why WMO calls the permafrost as a sleeping giant of greenhouse gases. Okay. So thawing, of course, is going to have a huge effect on the climatic conditions. Next one, climate feedback loop. Okay. So when the ice actually melts and the snow, they actually reveal. I told you, right? When the ice melts away, it reveals the land and the ocean. So what happens when that is gone? There is more absorption of heat, right? And this actually accelerates warming. This is what they are saying. And now moving forward, let us see other impacts. Next one, changes in the ocean circulation. Okay. So ocean circulation is what? You actually have the warm currents as well as the cold currents, right? So melting of the glaciers disrupt the ocean circulation because when the melting of the ice actually happens, there is huge amount of fresh water that is suddenly added to the ocean, right? So that is going to affect the heat distribution, and when the heat distribution is affected, then what happens is that the climate of different regions are also going to be affected. For example, ice sheets which actually melt in Greenland, that is going to release a lot of water into this particular Atlantic Ocean, and because of that, what happens? The salinity of the water will decrease. Then what happens is that the density of the water will change. So this entirely is going to affect the Atlantic meridional overturning circulation, which the report says it has been weakened 15% since the mid 20th century. So what do you mean by this AMOC, that is Atlantic Meridional Overturning Circulation? This is nothing but it is the ocean circulation only, okay? So if you actually see, it is like a conveyor belt. So here in this process, what happens is that it actually carries, that is the warm current actually carries the warmer water from the equator to the north, where it actually cools down and comes down as the cold current. So this actually acts in a conveyor belt fashion, and it actually returns back like this. So this is what it is called as the Atlantic Meridional Overturning Circulation, okay? So this is also going to be affected is what the article actually says. Next one, it's of course going to bring about a lot of socio-economic impacts, because it will cause a lot of rehabilitation, because there's melting of glaciers, intrusion of water into the coastal areas. So that is going to be there. Specifically, if you see the Hindu Kush region, okay, so that has affected around 2 billion people. Next one, if you see, there is also disruption in agriculture, then power generation, availability of water, specifically in the mid latitude and the tropical regions, okay? So first one I told you, the Hindu Kush Himalayas. Next one is also Europe, a shrinking of glaciers in the Alps. This affects the tourism and hydropower generation, okay? So this is what are the impacts of climate change on cryosphere. Now let's quickly go through what are the global initiatives with respect to the same. First one, you have the International Cryosphere Climate Initiative. This actually came up in the year 2019 following the Copenhagen COP15, that is a conference of parties. Here, network of senior experts and researchers who work with the government actually sit and they discuss about preserving as much of the Earth's cryosphere as possible. Next one is Global Cryosphere Watch, that is GCW. This is nothing but it is the joint initiative of WMO, that is World Meteorological Organization, along with other partners, and then they enhance the systematic observation and monitoring of the cryosphere. Now, moving forward, we have the United Nations General Assembly. This has actually approved this particular decade 2025 to 2034 as the decade of action for the cryospheric sciences. So here it becomes very important, because when it was considered as the International Year of Millets, question on millets was asked, okay? Then International Year on to combat desertification, the question on desertification was asked. Since this decade is actually considered as a decade for action for cryospheric sciences, importantly, cryosphere can be a possible question in your mains examination. So here, next one, we have the Arctic Council. This is nothing but a high-level intergovernmental body. This was set up in 1996 by what declaration? Ottawa Declaration. It actually aims to promote the cooperation, coordination and interaction among the Arctic states in order to protect the Arctic environment and ecosystem. So these are the global initiatives. More important are the Indian initiatives, that is the National Mission for Sustaining the Himalayan Ecosystem. Okay, so this is actually one of the 8 objectives, or one of the 8 missions under this NAPCC, that is the National Action Plan on Climate Change, which actually came out in 2008. This actually deals with the issues related to climate change. Okay, so NAPCC consists of 8 missions, of which one of it is this Himalayan ecosystem mission. So what are the other missions? Solar energy, enhanced energy efficiency, sustainable habitat, water, sustaining Himalayan ecosystem, green India, sustainable agriculture, strategic knowledge for climate change, and so on. Okay, so with this we've actually come to the end of a very big topic. So next one is actually the pacer also. This is important. Let's see what is this. So all the logistic programs as well as the scientific programs in very diverse polar domains were actually brought under one umbrella central sector scheme, that is actually called as the PACER scheme. This is nothing but polar science and research. See, polar science and cryosphere research, that is the PACER scheme. It has 4 elements. One is the Antarctic program, then you have the Indian Arctic program, then you have the Southern Ocean program, then the cryosphere as well as the climate program. It is implemented by NCPOR, that is National Center for Polar as well as the Ocean Research, which is an autonomous institute under the Ministry of Earth Sciences. So here we've actually discussed in detail about what do you mean by cryosphere, And what is the significance of cryosphere? However significant it is, what are the challenges or the implications of climate change on cryosphere? Then what are certain initiatives that are actually taking place across the globe, and how we saw the United Nations General Assembly has declared this as a decade for action of cryosphere preservation. So that also we saw. So after discussing all this, you need to talk about the conclusion, that is we need more of global efforts, and also we need to try to limit the global temperature to around 1.5 degrees as per our commitment with that of the Paris Agreement. Okay. So here we are actually done with a very important topic. Now let's quickly move on to the next topic, which is pretty easy as well. That is nothing but the Alzheimer's. Okay. Okay. So now we will be discussing about the disease, that is the Alzheimer disease. So I told you, any kind of disease, any kind of drugs that have actually been there, outbreak of anything, any kind of vaccines that the WHO actually come across, or you can say Mission Indradhanush for vaccination, all that becomes important. So here we'll be discussing about what is the recent study that has actually spoken about the what to say, the relationship between the increase in the blood fat level to that of increased propensity or increased chances of actually having Alzheimer's. Okay, so here let us see a previous year question. In the previous year, specifically in the 2017 examination, we have a question on the Zika virus. Okay, so here again the disease has actually become very important. So now let's move forward and understand. So recently there was a research that has actually been published in the journal Brain Network Disorders. This suggests a strong link between high fat levels in the blood and risk of Alzheimer's. So here you just have to know, what do you mean by Alzheimer's? Okay. So what do you mean by Alzheimer's? It is nothing but it is a progressive neurodegenerative disorder. What do you mean by neuro? So it is something connected to your nerve cells, okay, or your nervous system or your brain. So this is a neurodegenerative disorder. So that is gradually going to impair the functioning of your brain. So this is actually going to result in memory loss. There's going to be decline in your cognitive activities. There are going to be behavioral changes. There's going to be difficulty in the communication, and then poor decision making, disorientation with the time or the place, and alterations in mood and personality. Next one, the leading cause of this is, this particular Alzheimer is the leading cause to a condition known as dementia. That is 60 to 80% of the world dementia deaths are because of this particular Alzheimer's. Okay, so dementia is nothing but, that is what, it's an umbrella term that is used for losing all the cognitive capabilities of your body, where you cannot, your brain actually does not function well, your memory system is actually not performing well, all that is okay. So now let's move forward. Let's see what are the causes. Exact cause is not known, but there are certain factors that are actually responsible for driving this particular Alzheimer. First is age. It is mainly found in individuals who are over 65 years of age, where they actually have characteristics like loss of memory, etc. Next one, it can be genetics also. That is, there can be mutations in specific genes such as the APP, the PSENI, and then the PSEN2. This actually increases further susceptibility, and mainly the disease is actually associated with the abnormal building up of a protein. What is this protein? It's called as the amyloid protein accumulation. Okay, and then there is tau protein accumulation in the brain. Okay, that is what is these beta proteins. No, they actually club together, or they clump together and they form flakes, and that is actually between the nerve cells. So when this is a nerve cell and this is a nerve cell, there are flakes that is actually formed over here of this amyloid beta proteins and this tau proteins, and this tau proteins develop tangled formations inside the neurons, and this disrupts the function of the brain. So also there are lifestyle factors, okay, like if a person has cardiovascular diseases, if they are actually having obesity, if they are having diabetes, etc., or smoking or sedentary lifestyle without proper physical exercise, they can also have Alzheimer's, is what the study is actually telling. Next one, The diagnosis is that there are different types of diagnosis. How do you diagnose this particular disease? There are cognitive and neurological assessments, and either through different types of scanning and imaging like your MRI as well as the PET scans. MRI is what? It is magnetic resonance imaging, right? And similarly, PET is nothing but positron emission tomography. Similarly, CT is what? Computer tomography, right? So you have these many methods, and also there are biomarker tests, okay? Like they actually use your cerebrospinal fluid analysis in order to identify the whether the plaques, that is the amyloid plaques or the tau protein plaques are actually present. The treatment and management, currently you do not have any cure, but then what happens? Medications as well as supportive therapies are actually found to manage the systems as well symptoms, and the slow progression to some kind of an extent is what they have found. Now, prevalence across the globe, around 55 million people across the globe are actually affected by Alzheimer's, and with respect to India, as India is actually aging, the demographic dividend is going to decline over the next few years. What happens is that the cases of dementia and Alzheimer's are expected to reach around 7.6 million by the year 2030. That is just 5 years down the line, which is definitely a cause of concern. Okay. Now, let's move on to the next article on building resilient telecom infrastructure. Okay, so telecom infrastructure is very, very important, right? Because with the advent of science and technology and with the advent of data, then the digital connectivity, this telecom infrastructure actually has to be robust in India specifically, right? So over here, we will be discussing about the recent report that has been released by the Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure, that is CDRI, and what it actually talks about the telecom infrastructure in India and what are the vulnerabilities that it actually has towards the disasters like flooding, earthquakes, cyclones, etc. And then we'll also talk about what are the key recommendations of this particular report. So this particular article becomes very, very important for the prelims examination under current events of national and international importance, and for the mains examination under GS paper 3, disaster and disaster management. Okay. Now, let's move forward. In the previous years, in the 2011 prelims examination, there was a question on tsunami. So, they actually said that the 2004 tsunami actually made people realize that how mangroves actually serve as a reliable safety against the coastal calamities. So similarly, these kind of disasters and what are the adaptation and mitigation measures that India actually adopts is very, very important. And if there are any reports or the guidelines that are given by the NDMA, what are the provisions of the NDMA Act, when a disaster can actually be called as a national disaster or a calamity, what are the eligibility criteria, all that becomes important. Okay, so now let us actually move forward in order to understand why this particular article is in news. So the Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure, it put out a report earlier this month actually talking about the Indian telecom network's preparedness. That is how the Indian telecom network is actually prepared for the events of disasters in the future. So what is CDRI? This was actually launched in the year 2019. Very, very important, at the UN Climate Action Summit in New York. And this, more important, led by India. And it is India's second major global initiative after the International Solar Alliance. The International Solar Alliance also, India and France came together and they were leading it. Okay, so this is also led by India. The objective here is to promote the resilience of infrastructure to climate and the disaster risks. Okay, ensuring that is, see, any kind of infrastructure is there, they actually have to be resilient to any kind of disaster, so that there has to be a sustainable development. That's it. So that is what it is. Membership is 40 countries are members, with 7 organizations that include the UN agencies, the multilateral development banks, as well as the private sector also. Who are the key members? We have the ADB, we have the World Bank, we have the United Nations Development Program, we have the European Union, as well as the private sector alliances. Then where is the secretariat located? In New Delhi, India. So this entire CDRI becomes very, very important part of discussion for your prelims. So what are the observations of this particular CDRI? The first is that the key report, this is actually named or titled as Global Infrastructure Resilience Report. The significance is it actually provides a global mechanism, that is, how do you have to finance and how do you have to coordinate on disaster resilience. So this is what the report actually talks about. So it also focuses on giving any kind of technical support if there are any kind of capacity building needs for response and recovery for any kind of disaster. Next one, what are the initiatives under CDRI? Is that infrastructure for resilient island states. This promotes the resilient infrastructure in very, very small island developing states. Next one is disaster resilient infrastructure connect platform, that is a DRI platform. This actually facilitates the exchange of knowledge, collaboration as well as learning. Next one, International Conference on Disaster Resilient Infrastructure. So this is nothing but an annual conference that is held for the experts and decision makers on how to deal with disaster resilience and to come up with sustainable infrastructure. Next one, Infrastructure Resilience Accelerator Fund, IRAF. This actually supports the global action on disaster resilience of infrastructure. Now let us actually move forward. Then, what are the key findings? Key findings of the report is that there are telecom vulnerabilities in India, specifically with respect to certain disasters, because there are severe disruptions that is going to take place when there are actually events of cyclones, floods and the earthquakes, and also power dependency is there. Okay, so power failure is actually seen as the primary reason for the telecom outages during such disasters, and also there are risk with respect to undersea cable. Okay, so undersea cable risk, where only the coastal, mainly the coastal regions are actually prone to it, with their reliance on undersea cables face the highest risk of connectivity during such calamity. So these are the recent findings of the report. Also, there are many recommendations. These are very general recommendations, okay, like 4 to 5 of them you can actually remember. First is enhancing technical planning and design, of course, because we need to ensure that this telecommunication infrastructure can withstand any kind of impacts of disaster. Next one is developing a multi-hazard information repository so that it is actually data driven. Okay, so data should always be present for risk management. Next one, implementing risk informed governance. So you need to basically integrate the disaster resilience into different sectoral policies. Okay, next one, developing risk sharing instruments in order to safeguard the telecom operators also against any kind of financial vulnerabilities. Also, cross sectoral framework is actually important because stakeholders from different grounds actually have to be in touch with each other in order to collaborate for a resilient infrastructure. Then furthermore, it's talking about strengthen your financial arrangement, okay, which is very, very crucial for resilience of this telecom infrastructure. Next is promote last mile connectivity and information access, and further it is talking about upscaling institutional capacity, implementing precise monitoring mechanisms, all these things, okay, in order to enhance the quality as well as reliability on this particular infrastructure. So these are the key recommendations that have been given by the CDRI. Now the last article discusses about Supreme Court asked the panel to look into Tamil Nadu's plains over Mullaperiyar Dam. So here we'll be discussing about this particular issue of Mullaperiyar and the National Dam Safety Authority. Dam safety, very, very important, mains question 2023. Okay, so this is important for both the prelims and the mains examination under GS paper 3, conservation, environmental pollution and degradation, then environmental impact assessment and disaster management. Okay, very important. Now let's move forward. There has been a previous year question, as I told you, 2023 dam failures are always catastrophic, especially on the downstream side, resulting in the colossal loss of life and property. So now analyze various causes of the failures of dams and give 2 examples of such large dam failures. Okay, so now moving on, let's actually see why this particular article is in the news. So recently what happened, the Supreme Court actually directed a supervisory committee. So this supervisory committee was constituted by the center and it is chaired by the head of National Dam Safety Authority. So this supervisory committee has actually been asked by the Supreme Court to look into the issues that have actually been raised by Tamil Nadu, because basically this Mullaperiyar Dam is nothing but it was constructed in order to divert the waters of the Periyar river from the state of Kerala to the drought prone and the dry regions of Tamil Nadu. Okay, do you understand? So here we will see where the issues actually had started. Okay, so the Supreme Court has asked the committee to look into the issues raised by Tamil Nadu against Kerala over the maintenance of this 125-year-old Mullaperiyar Dam. Okay, so Mullaperiyar or Mullaperiyar, whatever it is. So here it has been constructed by a British engineer. So wherever the British is present, there is always a problem. A British engineer, Major John Pennywhick, and under the British government's rule in India, it was actually constructed between the period of 1887 to 1895, almost 2 decades, right? So the engineering technique here is that it is a gravity dam. So if you're a civil engineer, you know different types of dam. And then what is the mortar that is actually used here is that the lime surki mortar, which is actually a mix of lime as well as the powdered bricks, and this is actually a common engineering technique in the 19th century construction. Now, the purpose was to divert the water from the Periyar river, again very important, in Kerala to Tamil Nadu's dry regions for irrigation and drinking water. The significance is for the agriculture development, okay, specifically in the Madurai region of Tamil Nadu and the surrounding regions. Management is, it is operated and maintained by Tamil Nadu, though it is actually located in Kerala. So this is what it is. Now let us see where the disputes are actually started. So this is the dam. If you see here, it is the Mullaperiyar Dam. Okay, here you have the Periyar Tiger Reserve. Then you actually have the Suruliyar hydropower project. Then you have the Idukki Reservoir here. This is the Theni district of Tamil Nadu. So this is the border. Okay, so Tamil Nadu, Kerala, Periyar River. Okay, so here this becomes very important. Now moving forward, let us actually see the origin of the dispute. So in 1886, what happened? There was actually a lease agreement that was signed between the Travancore Kingdom in Kerala with that of the province of the Madras Presidency. Okay, so now it is actually called as Tamil Nadu. So there was a lease agreement signed where the Travancore Kingdom had actually leased this particular control of the dam to Tamil Nadu for around 1000 years, that is 999 years. Okay, and this agreement actually allowed Tamil Nadu to operate and manage the dam with a nominal compensation to Kerala. But post independence, what Kerala said, no, this agreement is unfair and it is outdated. Then this actually started leading to political as well as legal disputes between both the states over that particular dam. Next, here what are the stands that Kerala as well as Tamil Nadu put forth here is that Kerala says that the dam is very old and it is vulnerable to natural disasters like flood and even heavy rains. So it actually cites the risk posed by the climate change and demands the construction of a new dam. Whereas Tamil Nadu insists that the dam is structurally safe and opposes any kind of decommissioning. It just says that we need to complete the pending strengthening work, including the repairs to the dam as well as the grouting of the main dam. So this is what is the issue between both the states. So here you need to do is read about the Periyar River. And when you read about Periyar River, you must also read about other rivers which is of dispute between which all states, and in case of such interstate water disputes, what is the solution and what are the constitutional provisions with respect to that of the same. Does the Supreme Court actually has the final say or what it is you need to discuss. Now moving forward, the involvement of the Supreme Court. 2006, this actually allowed, in 2006, the Supreme Court allowed Tamil Nadu to raise water level from 136 to 142 feet after repair. And then in 2014, it upheld Tamil Nadu's right to raise the water level despite Kerala's opposition. 2021, Kerala pushed to decommission this particular dam, and Tamil Nadu opposed the same because they just felt only minor repairs are enough. Then a supervisory committee under the National Dam Safety Authority in 2021 was actually commissioned, and 2025 they directed, that is the Supreme Court directed the committee to meet the stakeholders within a week and resolve the issues. Now, let's quickly see what is the National Dam Safety Authority. This is established under the Dam Safety Act of 2021, very, very important, in order to take care of the dam safety in India. What is the policy formulation is that it develops all the safety guidelines as well as the standards when you are going to inspect a dam, when you're going to operationalize the dam as well as maintenance of a dam. Next one, coordination is collaborates with states and the central agencies for uniform safety protocols, and also monitoring, that is to oversee the performance of the dam and investigate any kind of failures of the dam. Next one, emergency preparedness. Obviously, you need to have measures in order to see any kind of the emergency situations during operation. Then dispute resolution, and finally compliance, that is ensures that you adhere to the National Dam Safety Framework. So this is what is the article about. Now, let's quickly solve the mains practice questions. So, discuss the significance of cryosphere in regulating the Earth's climate and what are its potential long-term consequences. So, approach over here is that the cryosphere that includes not only the glaciers, it also includes the ice sheets, the permafrost and the sea level ice. This regulates the climate through the albedo effect reflecting the solar radiation. However, you have this issue of, or the menace of, global warming that is actually accelerating the decline of this particular cryosphere. This is leading to severe consequences. So this will be the introduction of your answer. In the body, you'll talk about how significant is this cryosphere and what is going to be the consequence. Okay, that is, if it actually goes away, there's going to be a lot of water scarcity. There's going to be climate refugee, that is around 200 million people will be displaced by 2050, okay, because of lot of the side effects or the consequences of loss of water. All this is going to happen, and towards the conclusion you need to say urban global action is required in order to limit the surging or the soaring temperature to around 1.5 degree Celsius and protect the cryosphere. Now, let's move forward and see the prelims practice questions that would have been discussed yesterday by Prateek sir. So, which of the following provisions in the Indian Constitution reflect the federal structure of governance? First one, distribution of powers under the union, state and the concurrent list? Yes. Appointment of governors by the president? Yes. Representation of states in the Rajya Sabha? Yes. And Article 356, that is President's Rule, this is also correct. So, federal structure, since all the three are correct, 1, 2, 3 and 4, your answer will be option D. Now, moving forward, in which of the following cases was the rarest of the rare doctrine formally established? Important rulings, landmark judgments of the Supreme Court become extremely important. So, it is in Bachchan Singh versus State of Punjab. So, since option B is correct, your answer is option B. Okay, and also you need to know what are these different cases and what were the takeaway from these judgments, whether any kind of formulations were there or agreement was there, etc. Now, moving forward, which of the following statements is or are correct regarding the constitutional provisions governing obscenity in India? What is obscenity? Making any kind of vulgar or dark comedy. So, Article 19 clause 1 subclause A guarantees freedom of speech, but this can be restricted in the interest of public order and decency. Yes, because fundamental rights are not absolute, right? They come with reasonable restrictions. So you need to know what are the reasonable restrictions. So statement 1 is correct because it has reasonable restrictions of public order and decency. Next one, a law criminalizing obscenity must be justified under Article 19 clause 2, which actually allows restrictions on free speech in the interest of decency and morality. So this is also correct. Since 1 and 2 are correct, your answer will be option C. Now, moving on to the questions of today. Consider the following statements with respect to Alzheimer. It is an autoimmune disease, is it? So here you need to solve these questions going to the website, the link of which is actually given below in the comment section. So it is an autoimmune disease? No. It is actually a degenerative nervous disorder, right? So that is what it is. And it actually reduces the body's ability to regulate insulin. So it does not have anything with the blood sugar level. Next one, the disease is associated with the abnormal building up of amyloid beta and tau proteins in the liver. No, it is with respect to the nerve cells, right? So you know what would be the answer here. Moving on, consider the following statements with respect to Mullaperiyar Dam when it was constructed and there is a tussle between Tamil Nadu and Kerala for irrigation projects, etc. And who is actually maintaining it? Very important. So again, you can solve this. And the last question is on Coalition for Disaster Risk Infrastructure, Resilient Infrastructure. Talks about when it was established, whether it was a major global initiative focused on climate resilience, and its secretariat is located in Geneva, Switzerland. So all this we actually discussed in detail. So you guys actually should solve all this on the website. So with this, we've actually come to the end of the daily news analysis. So for more such detailed discussions of the articles, as we are actually coming closer to the prelims examination, and for more such interactive sessions, please do like, share and subscribe to Narayana IAS Academy YouTube channel. Until then, we will actually meet you. Thank you.